At 40 years old, Marcus Holloway, a man whose life was measured in the steady rhythm of footsteps on pavement, earned exactly $59,341 a year as a postal carrier for the United States Postal Service. His reality was the worn leather of his mailbag, the satisfying heft of a bundle of letters, and the quiet pride of a job done right. His world, however, had just been devastated by a single, crisp manila envelope. It wasn't junk mail. It was a formal petition for divorce, delivered not by a colleague, but by a stony-faced process server who had caught him on the porch of his own home in Germantown, Philadelphia. The server's car, a nondescript 2015 Ford Focus, was already pulling away from the curb as Marcus stood there, the envelope feeling heavier than his mailbag on the worst winter day. The air on that Tuesday evening in May was thick with the scent of honeysuckle from a neighbor's vine, a smell he usually loved. Tonight it felt cloying, suffocating. He looked at the paperwork, the bold text jumping out, Vanessa Holloway, petitioner versus Marcus Holloway, respondent. Vanessa, his wife of 12 years. The woman who, just 2 weeks ago, had packed a single suitcase, a $450 Samsonite spinner he'd bought her for their anniversary, and told him she needed a little space. She'd said she was staying with her sister Denise in her gleaming Rittenhouse Square high-rise, just to clear her head. He had believed her. He had offered to go to counseling, to change whatever she needed him to change. He was a man who believed in fixing things. He had no idea the only thing she was fixing was a plan to leave him with nothing. The initial filing was brutal in its efficiency, demanding not just a dissolution of the marriage, but sole possession of the marital home, the very brick row home he was standing in front of, the home his father had left him. The petition was a cold, legal document, but to Marcus, it was a voice. It was Vanessa's voice, filtered through her sister Denise, whispering a word he hadn't let himself consider: betrayal. He was a 40-year-old man with a modest salary, a deep love for his wife, and a devastating legal document in his hand that proved his love was not returned. What happens when a person you've built your entire world around reveals they were just a visitor, taking notes on what to steal when they left? For Marcus, the answer was a chilling silence that settled deep in his bones. He knew this was just the beginning. Their life together, Marcus had always thought, was a tapestry woven from small, sturdy threads. He remembered the day they moved into the Germantown house 10 years ago. It had been his father's, a simple 2-story brick row home with a small patch of grass out front. After his father passed, the house became his. It wasn't fancy. The floors creaked, the windows needed reglazing, and the kitchen was a throwback to the 1980s with its laminate countertops and almond-colored appliances. But it was solid, paid for, and filled with the ghost of his father's quiet love. The property taxes were $3,800 a year, a sum he dutifully paid every single time, on time. Vanessa had wrinkled her nose at first. "It has potential," she'd said, her eyes scanning the room, not with vision, but with judgment. Her sister Denise, who had come along to supervise, was less diplomatic. Denise lived in a different world, a world of valet parking and concierge services. She surveyed the modest 1,400 square foot house as if it were a curious artifact from a forgotten civilization. "Well, you'll need to gut everything, obviously," Denise had declared, running a finger in a $250 cashmere glove along a dusty windowsill. "The whole thing is maybe worth $220,000 right now. With a $100,000 renovation, you might get it to a respectable place." Marcus had just smiled. He didn't care about its respectable place in the market. He cared about its place in his heart. He spent the next decade making it a home for Vanessa. He didn't have the $100,000 for a gut renovation, but he had his hands and his time. He spent a full month's salary, nearly $4,000, on new appliances from a scratch and dent sale, a gleaming stainless steel refrigerator, and a gas range. He tore out the old shag carpet himself, revealing the original hardwood floors, which he sanded and refinished over 3 long weekends, the $300 rental sander from Home Depot rattling his bones. He painted every room in the colors Vanessa picked out from a stack of glossy magazines. Benjamin Moore's Palladian Blue for the bedroom, Revere Pewter for the living room. Each gallon cost $75. He built a life around her desires, a constellation of small financial sacrifices. His own needs were simple. He wore the same $89 Timex watch his father had worn. His work boots were Red Wings, a $220 investment in comfort and durability that he wore until the soles were slick. His idea of a good meal was one he cooked himself, but Vanessa's tastes were shaped by Denise's world. She wanted the $400 a plate experience at Vetri Cucina, the one she'd seen on Instagram. Marcus took her there for their 10th anniversary, the final bill with wine pairings, coming to $980, nearly a full week of his take-home pay. He paid with the credit card he kept for emergencies and spent the next 6 months paying it off, the 18% interest rate a quiet, nagging reminder of the night. She wanted clothes that mirrored her sister's. She didn't want a dress from Macy's. She wanted a $2,400 Burberry trench coat, like Denise's. She found one on sale for $1,600 and presented it to him as a reasonable compromise. He remembered the feeling in his gut as he swiped the card. The purchase so large the cashier had to call a manager for approval. He saw the coat twice. Once when she brought it home, and once when she wore it to a charity gala with her sister, an event for which tickets were $1,000 each, paid for by Denise's husband. Marcus had stayed home, watching a Phillies game on his modest 42-inch Vizio television, a $350 purchase from 5 years prior. He packed her lunch every morning before he left for his route. A salad with grilled chicken, the kind she liked from a cafe near Denise's condo that charged $18 for it. He made a better version for less than $3. He did the laundry, he scrubbed the floors, he fixed the leaky faucet in the bathroom with a $10 washer kit and a YouTube video. He performed these acts not as chores, but as a language. It was the only way he knew how to say I love you, in a way that felt as solid and real as the house around them. He thought she understood. He thought the foundation they were building was a shared one. He had no idea he was just the contractor, working on a property she was already planning to flip. The memory of his father was as solid and quiet as the man himself had been. James Holloway had been a mechanic for SEPTA, the city's transit authority. His hands were perpetually calloused and stained with grease, but they were the gentlest hands Marcus had ever known. He could fix anything, from a stripped engine bolt to a child's broken toy. He had bought the Germantown row home in 1983 for $42,000 and had paid it off over 30 years, celebrating the final payment not with a party, but with a quiet nod of satisfaction. The day Marcus had introduced him to Vanessa, James had been polite, his gaze steady and assessing. He had listened more than he spoke, watching the way Vanessa's eyes darted around the simple living room, cataloging its lack of modern luxuries. After she and Marcus left, James didn't say anything for a long time. A year later, just after Marcus and Vanessa were married, James called Marcus over to the house. He was already sick then, the diagnosis hanging in the air between them, unspoken but heavy. He had Marcus sit at the old wooden kitchen table, the same one Marcus was sitting at now. James slid a thick sealed manila envelope across the table. It was the same kind of envelope Marcus used at the post office, sturdy and official. "What's this, Pop?" Marcus had asked. His father looked at him, his eyes clear and direct. "This is for you, and only for you. I want you to put it somewhere safe. Don't open it. Don't even think about it too much. But one day you might need it. If things ever go sideways, if she ever files for divorce, son, I don't want you to fight it. Not in the way she'll expect. I want you to smile, be polite, and then give her this instead." Marcus was confused. "Pop, what are you talking about? Me and Vanessa are happy." James had put his large, warm hand over Marcus's. "I know you are, son, and I hope you're always happy. I hope you take this envelope and you put it in a drawer and you forget about it for 50 years. I hope you die an old man with her right by your side. But love doesn't always protect you. Sometimes you have to protect your love. And sometimes you have to protect yourself from it. This house, this was my life's work. It's your foundation. Don't ever let anyone take your foundation away from you." The conversation had unsettled Marcus. It felt cynical, distrustful. He loved Vanessa. He couldn't imagine a world where she would hurt him, but he loved his father more. So he took the envelope. He went home and tucked it into the back of the filing cabinet in the small office he'd set up in the spare bedroom. It sat behind old tax returns and appliance warranties, a forgotten piece of his father's final, pragmatic love. Over the years, the memory of the conversation faded, softened by the daily rhythms of marriage. He'd built a life with Vanessa right on top of that foundation his father had given him, never once suspecting the foundation itself was the very thing she intended to claim. The betrayal didn't begin with the divorce papers. That was just the final invoice for a debt of cruelty that had been accumulating for years. The escalating campaign of disdain was so subtle at first, Marcus had written it off as stress or moodiness. He now understood it was a deliberate strategy, a way to make him feel small, to make him feel like he deserved to lose everything. The dinner parties were the worst. About a year ago, Vanessa had insisted they start entertaining, which really meant having her sister Denise and Denise's husband, a wealth manager named Richard, over for dinner once a month. Richard, with his $5,000 Tom Ford suit and his Patek Philippe watch that cost more than Marcus's car, would sit at their simple dining table and hold court. During one such dinner, Richard was talking about a recent trip to the Swiss Alps. "The air up there, it just clears your head. Puts things in perspective," he'd said, swirling a glass of $150 a bottle wine that he had brought, making a point to mention the price. Denise, ever the loyal wingman, chimed in. "Oh, absolutely. We were just saying you get so trapped in your little bubble, you have to get out, see how the world really works." She glanced around Marcus's living room, at the framed photographs of his parents and the books he loved. It's important to have ambition. The barb was aimed at Marcus, and he felt it land. Vanessa, instead of defending him, laughed. "Oh, Marcus has ambition. Don't you, honey? You're very ambitious about getting your root done before it rains." The table went quiet. Richard smirked. Denise's eyes gleamed with victory. Marcus looked at his wife, searching for a flicker of apology, of solidarity. He found none. He just saw a cool, appraising look, the same one she'd given the house when she first saw it. He felt a hot flush of shame, not for his job, but for her. His job had integrity. It served people. He carried birthday cards and medicine and letters from distant loved ones. What he did mattered. But in that moment, in his own home, he was made to feel like he didn't. Then came the incident with his father's watch. It wasn't the expensive Timex he wore daily. It was his father's retirement watch, a gold-plated Bulova from the 1990s. It didn't work anymore, but it sat on his dresser, a quiet testament to a lifetime of service. One day it was gone. "Vanessa, have you seen my dad's watch?" he'd asked, a knot of anxiety tightening in his stomach. She was getting ready to go out, applying a layer of $60 Chanel lipstick. She barely glanced at him in the mirror. "The old gold one? I think I cleared some of that clutter off your dresser last week. It was probably in that box of stuff I donated." "Donated?" Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. "Vanessa, that was my father's." She finally turned, an exasperated sigh puffing her cheeks. "Marcus, it was a broken watch. It was tacky. Let it go. We're trying to create a more modern, minimalist aesthetic here. You can't have junk lying around." Junk. The word hung in the air between them. He didn't argue. He just walked out of the room, the space on his dresser feeling like a gaping wound. He knew even then that she hadn't donated it by accident. It was a message. What you value is worthless. What you love is disposable. He didn't know at the time that this was part of the strategy Denise had laid out for her. Operation Detachment. Make him feel like his past, his family, his very sense of self, was an anchor holding her back. The cruelty was a tool to make the eventual separation feel, to him, like a logical conclusion rather than a cold-blooded ambush. The arguments about money became more frequent and more vicious. One evening, she was scrolling through her phone showing him pictures of a resort in Bali. "Denise and Richard are going for 2 weeks. It looks incredible." "That's nice," Marcus said from the couch where he was rubbing his tired feet. "Looks expensive." "It is," she said, her tone sharpening. "It's $15,000 for people who have careers, not hobbies." He looked up. "My job is not a hobby, Vanessa." "Oh, I know," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "It's a calling. A noble calling that brings in, what, $60,000 a year? It's cute, really. It's just not enough. It's not enough for this." She gestured vaguely around the room, at their life, at her own reflection in the dark screen of her iPad. "I want more than this. Don't you? I want a partner who respects me," he said, his voice quiet but firm. That was a mistake. Her eyes flashed with anger. "Respect? You want to talk about respect? I am married to a mailman." "Do you know how that sounds when Denise's friends ask what my husband does? I have to watch their faces try to be polite. I have spent 12 years of my life in this perfectly adequate little house, being a perfectly adequate little wife to a man with perfectly adequate little dreams. I am done being adequate, Marcus. I want to live." It was the most honest thing she had said to him in years, and it was the cruelest. He had no response. The attack was so total, so contemptuous of the very life he had worked so hard to build for them, that it left him speechless. He saw then that he wasn't a partner to her. He was an obstacle, an embarrassing secret she had to keep. The day she left with the $450 Samsonite suitcase was cold and gray. The rain was just starting to fall. She stood in the doorway, her keys in her hand. She didn't look at him. "I just need some space, Marcus. To think," she said, the words sounding rehearsed. "I'm going to stay with Denise for a little while." "For how long?" he asked, his heart pounding a frantic, desperate rhythm. "I don't know." "Don't call me, I'll call you. We just need to let things breathe." She walked out, got into her 3-year-old Honda CR-V, a $26,000 car he had co-signed the loan for, and drove away without looking back. 2 weeks of silence followed. 2 weeks of him leaving hopeful, then pleading voicemails. 2 weeks of him thinking about what he could do to fix things. And then the process server arrived. He finally understood. She hadn't gone to think. She had gone to execute a plan that had been in the works for a very, very long time. Tuesday, June 4th, 9:18 p.m. Rain lashed against the windows of the Germantown row home, each drop a tiny fist pounding on the glass. The house was unnervingly quiet. For 12 years, the silence had been filled by the low hum of a television, the sound of Vanessa talking on the phone, the clatter of pots and pans. Now the only sound was the rain and the frantic beating of Marcus's own heart. He was sitting at the kitchen table, the divorce papers spread out before him like a coroner's report on his dead marriage. The legal jargon was a language of methodical destruction. The demand was clear. Vanessa wanted the house, its contents, and half of his modest pension. She was claiming her sweat equity in the property, citing renovations and upkeep that she alleged had significantly increased its value. The value she was claiming? $350,000. It was a fantasy number, but it was there in black and white. He was staring at the papers when a faint chime came from the corner of the kitchen. It was Vanessa's iPad, the one she'd left behind on the counter. A $600 device he'd bought her for her last birthday. She'd claimed she couldn't live without it, yet she had forgotten it in her haste to leave. A message notification lit up the dark screen. It was from Denise. Normally, Marcus would have ignored it. He was not a man who snooped. His entire life was built on a foundation of respect and privacy. But his father's words echoed in his mind. Sometimes you have to protect yourself. His hands, usually so steady, trembled slightly as he picked up the tablet. His thumbprint, still registered in the system, unlocked it instantly. The screen opened to a long thread of messages between his wife and her sister. He started at the top, from 3 months ago. His blood ran cold. Denise, did you talk to the lawyer? Vanessa, yes. She said it's a standard filing. We just have to establish that the house is marital property. Denise, it is? You've lived there for over a decade. You decorated it. That's sweat equity, Vanessa. That's what the lawyer said. She said the fact that his dad gave it to him doesn't matter as much after all this time. My name isn't on the deed, though. That's the only part that makes me nervous, Denise. Don't be. He'll be so blindsided and heartbroken, he'll sign anything to keep the peace. He's not a fighter, V. He's a mailman. He just wants a quiet life. We'll use that. Marcus felt the air leave his lungs. He scrolled down. The messages became a detailed playbook for his own emotional and financial ruin. Denise, you need to start detaching. Make him feel like he's the problem. Complain about money. Complain about his job. Make it seem like you're the one who is unhappy. Vanessa, I tried that last night. I told him his job was a hobby. He got so quiet. I almost felt bad. Denise, almost? V, do not feel bad. This is your one shot to get out and get what you deserve. Richard's friend, the real estate guy, said that house cleaned up could fetch $350,000 easy. That's your half, $175,000. Your nest egg. Don't let a moment of guilt cost you $175,000. He kept scrolling, his thumb moving robotically. He saw the planning for her departure. Denise, okay, the day you leave, pack light, just one bag. Tell him you need space, make it sound temporary. The key is to have the lawyer file the papers before you have any big emotional conversation. He needs to be served cold. That way he's reacting to us, not the other way around. Vanessa, got it. He's going to be devastated. Denise, good. Devastated people are messy. Messy people make mistakes. We will be calm, strategic, and rich. Rich. The word pulsed on the screen. The final message was the one that had just arrived. The one that had chimed. Denise. Did the server get him? Vanessa, yes. About an hour ago. He's called me 3 times. I sent them to voicemail. Denise. Perfect, don't answer. Let him stew. The longer he sits with those papers, the more he'll realize how screwed he is. He'll be ready to sign anything we put in front of him next week. How's the wine? Vanessa, a nice Sauvignon Blanc, celebrating my future. Celebrating. Marcus put the iPad down on the table, his hand covering his mouth. He felt a wave of nausea. This wasn't a marriage that had failed. This was a long con, a meticulously planned heist where he was not just the victim, but the mark. And the prize was his father's house. His father. The thought hit him like a lightning bolt. If she ever files for divorce, smile and give her this instead. He stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the linoleum floor. He walked from the kitchen to the small spare bedroom, the one he used as an office. He went to the old, gray, four-drawer filing cabinet, a $50 purchase from a second-hand office supply store. He pulled open the bottom drawer. It squeaked in protest. He reached into the very back, behind a folder labeled 1999 to 2005 taxes, and another for the Kenmore washer/dryer. His fingers brushed against it. A thick, sturdy manila envelope, now yellowed with age. He carried it back to the kitchen table and sat down. The iPad was still glowing with their treachery. The divorce papers were a monument to their greed, and in his hands was a ghost. He looked at the front. His father's handwriting, neat and blocky, for Marcus. With a deep breath, he slid his finger under the flap and tore it open. The paper inside was thick, folded into thirds. He unfolded it. At the top, in imposing letters, it read, "Quitclaim Deed." He scanned the document. It was dated September 14th, 2009, 2 months after Marcus and Vanessa were married. It was a legal transfer of the property at 5421 Green Street, Philadelphia. The grantor was James Holloway. The grantee was Marcus Holloway, a single man. He didn't understand at first. He read it again. Then he saw the attached note, clipped to the top of the deed, written in his father's hand. "Son, I had my lawyer draft this the day after you got married. It legally establishes that I gave you the house before your marriage, titling it to you as your sole and separate property. The marriage date on your certificate is July 10th, 2009. This deed is dated September 14th, 2009, but it legally and retroactively documents the transfer as a gift to you alone pre-marriage. It was filed with the city that day. This house was never marital property. It was never yours and hers. It has always been, and will always be just yours. He's a good lawyer. He made it ironclad. Now you know. Protect your foundation." Marcus stared at the document, then at the iPad, then at the divorce papers. The rain outside seemed to slow down. The pounding in his chest was replaced by a profound, chilling calm. They had thought he was a fool. They had mistaken his kindness for weakness. They had built their entire plan on a foundation of sand, not knowing he was standing on solid rock. His father had seen it. All those years ago, his quiet, unassuming father had seen the potential for this exact betrayal and had built him a fortress, not of bricks and mortar, but of paper and foresight. He didn't feel anger anymore. He didn't feel sadness. He felt the quiet, immense power of the truth. He picked up his phone. He had a lot of work to do. The days that followed the discovery were the longest of Marcus's life. He was living inside a performance, playing the part of the heartbroken, confused husband they expected him to be. Every interaction was a scene. Every word a carefully chosen line from a script only he possessed. It was exhausting. It was also necessary. His calm had to be absolute, his ignorance convincing. The first test came the next morning. His phone rang at 10:02 a.m. The caller ID read Vanessa. He let it ring 3 times, took a deep breath, and answered, pitching his voice to sound weary and broken. "Hello? Marcus? You didn't answer last night. I was worried." Her voice was a practiced blend of concern and distance, a tone she must have rehearsed with Denise. I got the papers, Vanessa, he said, letting a tremor enter his voice. He was sitting at his kitchen table, the quitclaim deed safely tucked into a new folder, the iPad wiped clean and returned to its spot on the counter. I don't understand. The house? You want the house? There was a pause. He could almost hear Denise in the background, coaching her. Marcus, please don't make this difficult, Vanessa said, her voice turning firm. We lived there for 12 years. I made it a home. My lawyer says it's standard procedure. It's marital property. Callback. She was using the exact term from her texts. Marital property, he repeated, as if the concept were new and terrifying. But my dad gave it to me. And I poured my life into it, she snapped, the frustration breaking through her calm facade for a second. Look, I can't talk about this now. My lawyer will be in touch with you or whoever you decide to get. Let's just try to be adults about this. He had to clench his fist under the table to keep his voice steady. I just want you to come home, Nessa, he whispered. It was a lie, but it was the lie she needed to hear. It confirmed her belief that he was weak, that he was still emotionally tethered to her. I can't, she said, her voice softening again, back on script. I'm sorry, Marcus. I really am. She hung up. He sat in the silence, his heart pounding not with grief, but with adrenaline. He had passed the first test. She still thought he was the mark. The second performance was 2 days later. A text from Denise. Hey, Marcus, I'm so sorry about all this. I'm in the neighborhood. Was thinking I could drop by with some soup and see how you're doing. He knew what this was. It was reconnaissance. Denise was coming to case the joint, to assess the value of her sister's prize. He typed back, That's nice of you, Denise. The door's open. She arrived 20 minutes later, driving not her husband's Mercedes, but a rented zip car, a calculated choice to appear less threatening. She carried a container of what she claimed was homemade chicken noodle soup, though it had the unmistakable label of a gourmet deli near Rittenhouse Square, a place that charged $22 for a quart. Oh, Marcus, she said, enveloping him in a hug that felt like a viper's embrace. She smelled of a $300 perfume, Le Labo Santal 33. How are you holding up? I'm getting by, he said, playing his part. Her eyes swept the living room, not with sympathy, but with an appraiser's coldness. The place looks good. You've really kept it up. She ran her hand along the mantelpiece he had built. These floors are in great shape, original hardwood, right? That adds value. I guess, Marcus said, shrugging. I never thought about it. You should, Denise said, her voice turning serious. Look, I know this is hard, but Vanessa just wants what's fair. She's not trying to hurt you. She sat down on the couch, patting the seat next to her. She's just outgrown this. She deserves a chance to start over, with a real nest egg. This house is that for her. You have your pension, your job. You can get a small apartment. You'll be fine. But this house is all she has. The audacity was breathtaking. She was sitting in his house, a house his father had paid for with 30 years of sweat, and telling him it belonged to her sister. He felt a cold fury rise in him, but he pushed it down, replacing it with the mask of a defeated man. I don't know anything about lawyers and nest eggs, he said, looking at the floor. I just miss my wife. Denise's face softened into a predatory smile. This was exactly what she had expected. The simple, heartbroken husband, ready to be fleeced. I know, sweetie. I know. She patted his arm. You just sign what her lawyer sends over. It'll be the quickest, most painless way for everyone to move on. She didn't stay long. She finished her tour, making mental notes of the new appliances, the refinished bathroom, the small garden he had planted in the back. Every improvement he had made out of love was now being cataloged as an asset for seizure. As she left, she gave him another chilling hug. "Be smart, Marcus. Don't fight it. It will only cost you more in the end." He closed the door behind her and leaned against it, his body trembling with contained rage. "Oh, I'm going to be smart, Denise," he thought. "You have no idea how smart I'm about to be." The soup went directly into the trash. The following Monday at 8:15 a.m., Marcus walked into the small, unassuming law office of Miller and Associates in Mount Airy. It wasn't a glass tower in Center City. It was a converted Victorian house on a tree-lined street, the kind of place that valued substance over style. He had found Eleanor Miller through a recommendation from a senior carrier at his post office, a man who had been through a messy divorce himself. "She's a bulldog, but she doesn't charge bulldog prices," he'd said. "She believes in justice for working folks." Eleanor Miller was a sharp, no-nonsense black woman in her late 50s. Her hair was a crown of elegant silver locks, and her eyes missed nothing. Her office was filled with law books, not fancy art. She didn't waste time with small talk. She gestured for Marcus to sit, her own desk a formidable fortress of organized files. Her hourly rate was $350, a fraction of the $1,200 an hour fee he was sure Vanessa's Rittenhouse lawyer was charging. "Mr. Holloway," she began, her voice calm and measured, "your friend from the USPS told me the basics. Your wife has filed? She's demanding the home. Tell me everything." For the next hour, Marcus talked. He laid out the 12 years of his marriage, the financial sacrifices, Vanessa's escalating demands, the influence of her sister. He was careful not to sound overly emotional, sticking to the facts, the dates, the dollar amounts. He told her about the $1,600 Burberry coat, the $980 dinner, the constant pressure for a life he couldn't afford, and, he now realized, she didn't deserve. Eleanor listened patiently, taking sparse notes on a yellow legal pad. Her face was unreadable. When he finished, she looked at him over the top of her reading glasses. "And the house? Your father gave it to you, you said?" "Yes," Marcus said. "Before we were married." "Is your wife's name on the deed?" "No, never." "Did you ever refinance and add her to the mortgage or title?" "There is no mortgage. My father paid it off in 2003, Marcus said. I've just been paying the property taxes and insurance." Eleanor nodded slowly. "Okay, her lawyer is going to argue that even though it was a gift, it became marital property through transmutation, that her contributions, her sweat equity, as they call it, and the use of marital funds for upkeep transformed your separate property into community property. It's a common argument. They'll claim she has a significant financial interest." She tapped her pen on the desk. "Based on what you've told me, they're going to paint you as a low-earning, unambitious man, and her as a woman who invested her prime years in a home and marriage that failed to provide for her future. They will request a disproportionate award of the assets, namely the house, to compensate her." It was the sisters' strategy, laid out in perfect, chilling legalese. Marcus felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "Can they win?" he asked, his voice quiet. "It's a fight," Eleanor admitted. "A messy, expensive one. They'll bring in decorators to testify about her design choices. They'll subpoena your bank records to show every dollar spent on Home Depot runs. They'll try to drown us in paperwork and billable hours, assuming you can't afford to fight back." She leaned forward. "What evidence do you have to counter their narrative?" This was the moment. Marcus reached into his worn leather satchel, the one he usually used for his lunch and a thermos of coffee. He pulled out 3 items. First, he placed Vanessa's iPad on the polished surface of Eleanor's desk. My wife left this behind, he said. She and her sister are prolific texters. The entire plan is on here. Their words. Eleanor's eyebrows shot up. She looked at the iPad but didn't touch it. Is it password protected? My thumbprint opens it, he said. Good man, she murmured, a flicker of a smile on her lips. What else? Next, he laid down a printed copy of the email from Vanessa's lawyer, the one outlining her demands. The letterhead was from a prestigious firm, Morgan, Finch, and Adler, LLP, with a high-rise address. The demand was for the house, valued at $350,000 plus $50,000 from his pension. Then, he placed the final item on the desk, the old, yellowed manila envelope from his father. He slid the quitclaim deed out and passed it to her. Eleanor Miller picked up the deed. She read it once. Then, she read it again, her eyes narrowing. She walked over to her computer and typed for a few moments, her fingers flying across the keyboard. She was searching the city's public records. A slow smile spread across her face. Well, I'll be, she said, turning back to Marcus. It's here, filed and recorded on September 15th, 2009. A clean transfer. Grantor, James Holloway. Grantee, Marcus Holloway. A single man. She looked from the deed to Marcus, and for the first time, he saw a fire in her eyes. Mr. Holloway, she said, her voice filled with a newfound energy. This isn't just evidence. This is a silver bullet. This document, combined with those text messages, this isn't a divorce case anymore. This is a demolition. She explained the legal power of what he held. The quitclaim deed, properly filed before the marriage was officially recognized as affecting the property, made the house his sole and separate property, immune to division in the divorce. The text messages proved that Vanessa and her sister knew this was a potential problem and conspired to commit what amounted to attempted fraud, using emotional manipulation to trick him into signing away an asset that was never hers to begin with. So what's the plan? Marcus asked. Eleanor's smile was sharp and brilliant. The plan is simple. We do nothing. We let them continue. We agree to mediation. We let them walk into that room, puffed up and confident. We let her lawyer lay out their entire fantasy case, with spreadsheets and projected values. We let them put their greed on full display for the mediator. And then, at the moment of their greatest confidence, you will do exactly what your father told you to do. You will smile, and you will give her this. She tapped the quitclaim deed, and then we will watch it all burn down. Leaving her office, Marcus felt a lightness he hadn't experienced in years. The sun was shining. The air was warm. He wasn't a victim anymore. He was a man with a plan his father had set in motion more than a decade ago. The mediation was scheduled for July 22nd, a hot, humid Philadelphia day where the air itself felt heavy with anticipation. The location was a neutral territory, a mediation center in a sleek glass tower on Market Street. The conference room on the 34th floor was designed to be calming, with its muted gray walls, abstract art, and a panoramic view of the city. To Marcus, it felt like an arena. He arrived at 9:45 a.m. for the 10 a.m. start, accompanied by Eleanor Miller. Marcus wore his best suit, a simple charcoal gray one from Macy's that he'd bought for his father's funeral. It had cost him $299 5 years ago. It was clean, pressed, and it made him feel dignified. Beside him, Eleanor was a portrait of calm authority in a dark navy pantsuit. Vanessa and her entourage arrived at 10:05 a.m., a calculated power move to make Marcus wait. She swept in, not looking at him, flanked by her sister Denise and her lawyer, a man named Alan Finch. Finch was exactly what Marcus had pictured. Tall, silver-haired, with a tan that spoke of weekend sailing trips and a handmade Italian suit that probably cost $8,000. Vanessa was wearing a cream-colored silk dress that Marcus had never seen before, a clear statement of her new, unencumbered life. It likely cost at least $900. Denise was there for moral support, though her sharp eyes were taking in everything, assessing the enemy. They all took their seats around a massive, polished mahogany table that felt as long as a city block. The mediator, a pleasant-looking woman named Sarah, introduced herself and explained the process. Her goal, she said, was to help them find a mutually agreeable path forward. Alan Finch cleared his throat and began. He spoke for 20 minutes, his voice smooth and confident. He painted a picture of Vanessa as a long-suffering wife, a woman who had dedicated 12 years of her life to creating a beautiful home and supporting her husband, only to be left with nothing to show for it as she entered her 40s. He used phrases like emotional labor and unrealized potential. He spoke of Vanessa's vision for the Germantown home, her impeccable taste that had transformed a modest inheritance into a significant asset. He produced a glossy binder. "We have here," he said, sliding it across the table, "a detailed accounting of Miss Holloway's contributions. We have receipts for furniture, invoices from contractors for the bathroom remodel, and a market analysis from a top Philadelphia real estate agent, estimating the current value of the property at $355,000. He pushed a spreadsheet forward. Factoring in Miss Holloway's non-financial contributions and her waiver of any claim on Mr. Holloway's modest pension, we believe a fair and equitable settlement is the immediate transfer of the title of the home to her, allowing her to secure her financial future. Marcus watched Vanessa as her lawyer spoke. She sat straight, her chin high, a little smile playing on her lips. She looked confident, entitled. She glanced at him once, a flicker of pity in her eyes, the look a queen might give a stable boy. Denise, sitting slightly behind her, gave her a subtle, encouraging nod. They truly believed they had already won. When Finch was done, the mediator turned to Marcus and Eleanor. "Ms. Miller, your response?" Eleanor smiled serenely. "Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Alan, for that comprehensive work of fiction." Finch stiffened. "I beg your pardon?" "My client and I don't dispute the facts of the marriage," Eleanor continued, her voice even. "We don't dispute that Vanessa lived in the home. What we dispute is the very foundation of your entire claim. The premise that the home at 5421 Green Street is or ever was marital property." A look of confusion crossed Finch's face. Vanessa shifted in her seat. "Of course it's marital property," Finch said dismissively. "They lived in it for 12 years. "That's where you're mistaken," Eleanor said. She looked at Marcus and gave him a slight nod. This was his cue. Marcus reached into the simple, unadorned leather briefcase Eleanor had lent him. His hand was perfectly steady. He didn't feel anger or revenge. He just felt a quiet, profound sense of justice. He pulled out a single, crisp, folded document. He did not say a word. He looked directly at Vanessa, held her gaze for a single, long second, and then he slid the paper across the polished mahogany table. It slid silently, perfectly, coming to a stop directly in front of Alan Finch. Finch picked it up, a frown on his face. He unfolded it. Marcus watched him read. He saw the exact moment the lawyer understood what he was looking at. The man's tan seemed to fade. His confident posture slumped. He read it again, his eyes darting from the date to the legal description to the notarized signature. He looked up, his professional mask shattered, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated shock. "What is this?" Vanessa demanded, her voice sharp. Finch didn't answer. He just stared at Eleanor. "Where did you get this?" he whispered, as if they were the only two people in the room. "It's a quitclaim deed, Alan," Eleanor said, her voice clear and carrying. "Filed with the City of Philadelphia on September 15th, 2009. It documents the transfer of the property from the late James Holloway to his son, Marcus Holloway, as a single man, establishing it as his sole and separate property prior to the legal commencement of the marital estate. I believe you'll find it's all in order." Vanessa snatched the paper from her lawyer's hand. She read it, her lips moving silently. Her face, which had been a mask of smug confidence, went through a rapid, ugly transformation. First came confusion, then dawning horror. Finally, a wave of pure, unadulterated fury. Her face went white, then a blotchy red. This is not possible," she stammered, looking at Marcus. You knew about this? All this time?" Marcus looked at his wife, the woman who had plotted his ruin over glasses of Sauvignon Blanc, and for the first time, he spoke. His voice was calm, steady, and devoid of all emotion. "My father was a wise man," he said. "He told me to protect my foundation." The room was silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. The mediator, Sarah, was staring at the deed, then at Eleanor, her expression one of professional awe. Denise looked like she had seen a ghost. Vanessa threw the deed onto the table. "This changes nothing," she shrieked, her voice cracking. "I have rights. I have sweat equity. I decorated that house." Alan Finch finally found his voice, trying to salvage the situation. "My client has clearly contributed to the value of the home." Eleanor cut him off, her voice like ice. "Your client contributed paint colors and throw pillows, Alan. My client paid the taxes, the insurance, and the upkeep from his own salary for 12 years. The text messages from your client to her sister, where they conspire to commit fraud by deliberately misrepresenting the nature of the property to the court, will make for very interesting reading in a deposition, or perhaps in front of a judge." The word fraud landed like a grenade in the center of the table. Finch's face went pale. Denise audibly gasped. Vanessa looked at her sister with panicked eyes. "Text messages?" Finch stammered. Eleanor gestured to the briefcase. "We have everything, the entire sordid plan. He'll be so blindsided and heartbroken he'll sign anything. Don't let a moment of guilt cost you $175,000. Devastated people make mistakes." Sound familiar? Vanessa's jaw dropped. She looked at Marcus, her eyes wide with a new kind of fear. The fear of being caught. The fear of consequences. The mediator cleared her throat. "I believe," she said, with masterful understatement, "it would be wise to take a brief recess." Alan Finch stood up abruptly. "Yes, a recess." He grabbed Vanessa by the arm, practically dragging her out of the room, with Denise scrambling behind them. As they left, Marcus could hear the beginning of their new reality. "What text messages?" Finch was hissing at Vanessa in the hallway. "What have you done?" Marcus sat alone at the table with Eleanor. He looked out the window at the city below. He felt nothing but a vast, quiet peace. The storm had finally broken. The collapse of Vanessa's world was not a single, dramatic explosion, but a cascade of failures, each one a direct consequence of her own greed and arrogance. The consequences, when they came, were specific, measurable, and devastating. The first domino to fall was her lawyer. Alan Finch, facing the dual threat of a client who had lied to him and opposing counsel who had evidence of attempted fraud, did what any $1,200 an hour lawyer would do. He protected himself. After a furious 20-minute argument in the hallway, he returned to the conference room alone, his face grim. He formally withdrew as Vanessa's counsel, citing an irreparable breakdown of the attorney-client relationship. 2 days later, Vanessa received his final bill, a charge for 18.5 hours of work at his full rate, totaling $22,200. The bill noted that her initial $15,000 retainer had been exhausted, and the remaining $7,200 was due immediately. The second consequence was legal reality. Desperate, Vanessa tried to find a new lawyer. The story of the disastrous mediation, however, traveled quickly through the small world of Philadelphia family law. The first 3 lawyers she called refused to take her case once they heard the names Holloway and Miller. The fourth, a cut-rate attorney from a strip mall office in Northeast Philly, agreed to a consultation for a flat fee of $500. He listened to her story, looked at the copy of the quitclaim deed, and told her bluntly, "You have no case. The house is his. Walk away before he decides to sue you for his legal fees." She left his office in a rage, $500 poor. Third came the housing crisis. Her sister Denise, whose Rittenhouse Square condo had been the command center for the entire operation, was furious. The fury was not born of sympathy, but of failure. The plan was for Vanessa to get the house and sell it, not to end up defeated and broke. Richard, Denise's husband, made it clear that Vanessa's stay at their $1.2 million condo was over. "This drama is affecting our lives," he had said. Within a week, Vanessa was forced to move out. With her credit ruined and no savings, she couldn't afford a decent apartment. She ended up in a cramped, 400-square-foot studio apartment in South Philadelphia for $1,150 a month. The apartment was on the 3rd floor of a walk-up, had a view of a brick wall, and the kitchen was a small alcove with a 2-burner stove. It was a world away from the sunlit rooms of the Germantown home she had tried to steal. The fourth consequence was the fracturing of her relationship with her sister. The bond that had seemed so strong when they were plotting together dissolved under the acid of failure and financial strain. Denise saw Vanessa not as a sister to be comforted, but as a failed investment and a potential drain on her own resources. Their calls became short and tense. Denise refused to lend her money for a security deposit, saying, "You need to learn to stand on your own 2 feet." The partnership in crime had become a bitter rivalry of resentment. Finally, there was the voicemail campaign. Marcus, on Eleanor's advice, blocked her number, but had the voicemails saved as evidence. They were a perfect, horrifying record of her dissent. The first message, left the evening of the mediation, was pure rage. "You think you're so smart, Marcus. You and that smug lawyer. You will regret this. I will tell everyone what you did." The second, 2 days later, was pleading. "Marcus, please. Please, can we just talk? This has all been a huge misunderstanding. It was Denise. She put all these ideas in my head. I never wanted to hurt you." The third, a week later after her lawyer had quit, was desperate. "I'm going to lose everything. I have nowhere to go. You can't do this to me. After 12 years, don't I deserve something? Just give me $50,000 and I'll sign whatever you want, please." The final voicemail came late one night, about a month after the mediation. It was just the sound of sobbing. A long, painful, defeated cry that eventually just faded to silence. Marcus listened to them once, with Eleanor present. He felt a flicker of pity, but it was distant, like watching a news report about a stranger's misfortune. That woman on the phone, the one whose life was unraveling, was not the woman he had loved. He didn't know who she was. He was just grateful she was gone. The divorce was finalized 60 days later. Vanessa, representing herself, signed the agreement Eleanor had drafted. She walked away with her personal belongings, her Honda CR-V with its $280 monthly payment, and half of their $4,200 joint savings account. Her total settlement, $2,100. The cost of her failed gamble was incalculable. 1 year later, sunlight streamed through the clean windows of the house on Green Street. The light fell on the newly refinished hardwood floors, their deep brown grain luminous and warm. The house was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet now. It was a peaceful quiet, a contented quiet. It was the sound of home. Marcus, now 41, was a different man. The soft uncertainty in his eyes had been replaced by a calm, steady confidence. He had spent the past year reclaiming the house, not with expensive renovations, but with his own 2 hands. He had repainted the living room, choosing a warm, earthy tan called Savannah clay. It cost him $60 for the paint and a weekend of his time. He'd spent hours in the small backyard, tilling the soil and planting a vegetable garden. Rows of tomatoes, cucumbers, and peppers now grew in neat, orderly lines, a testament to his patience and care. The biggest change was in the basement. He had spent 4 months of weekends and evenings finishing it, teaching himself how to frame walls, run electrical wiring, and install drywall from videos on the internet. He turned the damp, unused space into a bright, clean 1-bedroom apartment with a separate entrance. The entire project cost him just under $7,000 in materials, a sum he paid for with cash he'd saved by working overtime shifts. He rented it out to a nursing student from LaSalle University for $950 a month. The steady, passive income was a revelation. It wasn't a fortune, but it was his. It was a safety net he had built for himself. His life had found a new rhythm. 3 days a week, after finishing his route, he would walk down to the local community center. There he mentored 2 teenagers from the neighborhood, a quiet 15-year-old named Jamal and his more boisterous friend Leo. He didn't preach to them. He just showed them things. He taught them how to change the oil in a car, how to properly spackle a hole in a wall, how to read a wiring diagram. He taught them the things his father had taught him, the value of a skill, the dignity of a job well done. One afternoon, Jamal was helping him fix a wobbly chair in the center's lounge. "Mr. Holloway," the boy said, holding a screwdriver, "how come you know how to fix everything?" Marcus smiled. "I don't know how to fix everything, Jamal. Not even close. But my father taught me that it's better to know how to fix something than to know how to buy it. When you fix something, you own the solution. When you just buy it, you're just renting it." He saw a flicker of understanding in the boy's eyes. In that moment, he felt a sense of purpose that no salary or possession had ever given him. He hadn't heard from Vanessa in months. The final, quiet postscript to their marriage had come in the form of a letter, forwarded from her mother's address in Delaware. It was a handwritten apology, full of remorse and self-pity. She was working as a hostess in a chain restaurant, she wrote. She was in therapy. She finally understood what she had lost. He read the letter, folded it, and placed it in a box with the other relics of his former life. He wished her peace, but he felt no need to reply. Forgiveness, he had learned, was not about absolving the other person. It was about freeing himself. One evening, Marcus sat on his front porch watching the sunset paint the Philadelphia sky in shades of orange and purple. The air was filled with the scent of his own roses, which were finally blooming. He held a simple cup of coffee in his hands, his Timex watch glinting in the fading light. He had his job. He had his home, truly his own. He had his garden, his tenants, and the 2 boys at the center who looked up to him. He had everything he needed. His father had been right. True wealth wasn't about the number on your paycheck or the price tag on your coat. It wasn't about a Rittenhouse address or a view from a high-rise. True wealth was a foundation. It was the solid ground of a home you owned, the strength in your own 2 hands, and the quiet, unshakable peace in your heart. Marcus took a sip of his coffee and smiled. He was the richest man he knew. What do you think Marcus's father saw in Vanessa that day they first met? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this story of resilience inspiring, please share it with someone who might need to be reminded of their own strength.